Hello and welcome to day 3. I am so excited to be here and really feeling quite humbled and privileged to be sharing what I'm sharing with you today, because to me this topic and this kind of awakening that I had through this particular content was actually really potent and powerful for me. And so I hope that you receive equal amounts of kind of opening up and awakening. So for those of you who are here already, please say hello in the comments. For those of you who are catching the replay, please let me know, #replay, let me know that you're here. And throughout this video and throughout this transmission and interaction, I would love you to connect with me and interact through the chat box, because it is really, really enhancing of my experience to see you receiving this information, to hear your aha moments, to hear what you're receiving through the information that I'm sharing. Hey, Kathleen. Hey, Samantha. Hey, Beck. Hey, Queens. Oh, it's so exciting to be here. Like I said, for probably all of you who may have missed it, I'm really pumped about what I'm sharing today. It was a really potent lesson for me. And so, yes, very, very, very excited to be here. So as you may have noticed through, some of the content that we've talked about thus far this week, the New Earth Woman is really about attunement, about attuning the kind of nuances of frequencies and availability in our own evolution, in our own growth, in our own expansion. And some of the concepts can be simple and yet so incredibly powerful. It can really crack us open into awakening, into a new understanding. And this is kind of the potency of the work, is that each and every single one of you will receive something different from what I'm sharing, and that is absolutely perfect. So again, hey Andrea, I love hearing from you all throughout the video, so please do keep up in the comments box and let me know what's landing and how you're going. And so today we're going to be going deep into the concept of what our purpose is here on the planet. And this is going to be, slightly different for everyone. It may land more for some than it does for others. And for me, it was really a long journey of trying to work out what my purpose was. And although that's an important and valid part of the journey, this is kind of an evolutionary experience of that. Hey, Katie, thanks for being on live. So in the old earth, in the experience kind of before and leading up to this now moment that we have in this part of our evolutionary collective journey, we started off, at least in our direct history, with the industrial age, the industrial revolution. And during that time, and then from there all the way through into the Depression, work on the planet and the way in which we made income and brought money into the world was really about working to survive. People needed to have a job in order to, hey Kerry, thanks for joining. People had to have a job in order to survive. And so what that meant was there was a much lighter on the purpose and much heavier on the kind of need, can't survive without, I'll take whatever I can get. And over the years, we moved into a place which is our kind of most recent period of time, where we really stepped into, finding your purpose and sort of starting to discover that we actually, are coming out of the Depression and into this kind of newer experience. We actually got to choose what it is that we got to do. And so people were moving into more of their kind of desired way of working in the world and of making money. And not just of making money, but in the way that they kind of interacted with the world. And it was led a little bit, sorry, I'm just getting notifications. I'm trying to shut them down so that they don't keep distracting me, because I just want to see your comments and nothing else. And then now we are opening up into a new availability of our purpose. And that purpose is to be yourself. Now, when this first landed for me, it actually changed my entire life, because up until that point, I had been kind of looking and trying and working out, like really figuring it out from my mind perspective on like how it was that I was here to contribute and express myself and all these things. And it was based on these kind of external factors of like, you know, how I saw my purpose to be, whether that be like through coaching and working with people. I originally studied nutrition and health, so was it about that? And just about all these kind of external factors. And when I came into the really deep understanding of my purpose is to be me, it kind of really changed everything for me. And so that's what I'm kind of going to be sharing with you today. So what you will notice that has happened over the last couple of years, especially maybe the last kind of 5 to 10 years, 10's kind of a push, but 5 especially, is that we've really moved into this new era where people just get paid to be themselves. Like no skills, nothing really potentially like majorly amazing to offer, but simply by showing up as themselves. And they're finding very interesting and unique ways in order to turn that into like an income. And it's really started to pave the way and shine the way for everyone else to kind of follow suit. So you will notice this with things like Instagram influencers. Like so many people will kind of throw shade on them. Like, what are you even doing? And you're an influencer? However, I see it as like, wow, they are really creating a totally new available space for us to be in. Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody go and become an Instagram influencer, of course, unless that's your thing. However, getting paid to simply be yourself is actually a really kind of inspiring concept. And so what I kind of wanted to bring forward with this was the idea that when we are in our light, when we are following what it is that lights us up, when we are doing things that make us feel excited, this is ultimately the kind of being of ourself that becomes our purpose. So it first starts with the excitement and the inspiration and the desire that we have in order to show up in the world and express ourselves. And it can kind of turn into something. So I know that a lot of the people that are in here are working in their kind of purpose and in their work, and that's awesome. And I also know that some of you won't have kind of like worked that out, what that is yet. And even for those that have kind of worked it out, we can often get caught up in the do, in the how is this meant to look, or what is it that I'm meant to be doing, or should I be trying this new thing or this other thing, or this other person said that it's better to do it that way, and so I should do it that way. And this comes into all elements of business, whether it be the way that we express ourselves or the way that we market. And it also shows up in areas of life where people aren't necessarily having their own business, and it's like you know, how they're spending their spare time, or in their work where they have a job. It's like, am I actually doing the work that truly lights me up, or am I doing it because I have to work? Because the truth is, right now, we absolutely have the availability to kind of work in the ways in which light us up. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a story of a couple of the ways in which this has been exampled to me through my own experiences, and that hopefully it will kind of give you some inspiration or some ideas in how to kind of follow these kind of nudges that are kind of pulling you in a particular direction. We'll go a little bit deeper into some of the aspects of this as well. So only about maybe 2.5 years ago, actually quite longer than that, I was in a business mastermind with a like very kind of prominent coach and mentor in the kind of spiritual space. She was doing some really amazing things, kind of impacting lots and lots of people. And I loved being in the in the mastermind. And also like separate from that, I was like running my own business and doing my own thing. And throughout a couple of the terms of the mastermind, I would find myself really interacting in the Facebook group as if I was like a supporter or part of the team. You know, I just purely did it out of the goodness of my heart, and because I actually loved giving feedback to, in this particular time that I'm speaking of, we were actually going into marketing. And what I was recognizing throughout this whole process was just how much at that particular time it was that I was like just obsessed with marketing. I loved giving people feedback on the pieces of like content that they were sharing and the ideas that they were having. And I just loved supporting them. And so even though I wasn't being paid for it and it wasn't my role, and I knew that it probably wasn't like potentially to some of the people in the group like perfect that I was kind of showing up that way, but it excited the absolute hell out of me. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to keep doing it unless I'm told to do otherwise. And this was, let's say, in about maybe like September, October. And I knew that I was offering a significant amount of value to the people that were receiving me purely because I was just showing up and expressing myself with no expectation and zero agenda. There was no me trying to do anything by it. And what I wanted to share with you was the kind of result of this, which was that in like maybe 4 months later, this particular coach and mentor actually asked me to join her team. Now, when that happened, and when I was asked to join her team, I actually was completely blown away, shocked, right? Because I was not expecting it. Never ever had I shared myself in that space to get anything out of it. Yet here I was being presented with an absolutely incredibly amazing opportunity that was not only going to bring me more abundance because I was going to be getting paid quite well for it, but also close proximity to one of my favorite people at that time. And so the reason that I wanted to share this with you was because I feel like it's so important to just recognize when we are expressing ourselves just purely out of the desire to do so, when we are showing up in our excitement and when we are showing up in the things that light us up with no agenda and no reason for doing it. Now, for those of you who do have your own business, this can really show up in the way that we do our marketing, because we can easily get caught in this idea of doing it to get something, right? And I will say, hand on heart, that although there is a part of this immersion that I'm doing for everybody to see what I'm about, to hear about my amazing Wise Warrior Woman program, there's also so much of me that just truly wants to be able to speak out into the world all of the things that light me up and all of the things that excite the hell out of me. And so being really, really mindful of the parts of us that are doing something to get something versus doing it because it's lighting us up. Because the true purpose, the truth of what it is that we are each individually here to do is to be the full expression of ourselves. It's to uncover all of the layers that stop us from being the full expression of ourselves. Again, when I first heard this was like a really huge thing for me. The biggest impacts that you will ever make on the people around you are the ones that you're completely unaware of, the ones in which you are not trying to make an impact or trying to save the world or to heal the world, but purely when your light is shining as brightly as it possibly can, it creates a ripple effect of impact, right? I would love to get some feedback on this. Share with me. Yes, I love this. Thanks, Alicia. Thanks, Kerry. Thanks, Beck. Yes, stepping into your mission. So for me, my mission is to be the fully expressed version of myself. Now, for some people, and this is totally okay, it's just different to the way I see it, their mission is to impact, their mission is to change the world, their mission is to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, for me, this was the most expansive and opening kind of thing, was that my mission isn't to do all of those external things. My mission is to shine my light, to be me, to express myself, to show up, to not dim my light. And that is the impact. That is the ripple that is created to those that are around us. It's not because we are trying to do the do. Right? Now, this can be a really subtle difference when it comes to our purpose and our mission, which is, are we being pulled by the calling of our soul? Or are we being pushed by our ego? This is a really kind of nuanced feeling to check into when we're taking action on anything that we are doing, whether it be in our lives and in the way that we interact with our families, or in our work, whether it be at your job, in your business, whatever, is to really tune into, is this pulling me because it's my soul's desire? Is this part of my purpose and my expression? Or is this my ego trying to tell me to do something because of all of those layers that I have over top of me? Now, we're going to be going deep into ego stuff in a kind of a different angle to this tomorrow. I think tomorrow, I won't guarantee that, at some point this week. But it's really important to check in with where are you being pushed and where are you being pulled. Now, the pulling of the soul, the pulling of the mission, the pulling of the purpose to be you is being pulled into your expression, being pulled into shine your light, being pulled into the highest version of you, the new earth version of you, the best and most potent expression of who you are, as opposed to being pushed there because somebody told you to, or because you're being hard on yourself and you told you to, or because you've been conditioned to believe you're meant to change people's lives or help people, right? Yes. Is it your soul calling or your ego calling? Exactly. And so, are we being driven by external validation? Or are we being driven by not enoughness? Because our ego is telling us if we don't do it, we won't be enough. And therefore we won't be loved, or we won't be accepted, or any of those things. Again, we're going to go into that a little bit deeper tomorrow, I think. And so from this place, we get to shift from what am I here to create into who am I here to be, and know with certainty that from that place, the creation flows as an expression of her, of that version of you who is asking herself the question, who am I here to be? What have I got to share? What is it that lights me up? And from that place is where we get to create and be in the full expression of ourselves. I would love to hear from you guys. Like, are you noticing through these things that I'm sharing with you, where there are some areas in your life in which you are being pulled by your soul and your mission, and where you're being pushed by your ego? Yes, this can be, in the little pieces of like obligation and shoulds and coulds and woulds in the ego camp, whereas the purpose and the pulling by the soul is more from a desired love, pure divine love. Now that even plays out in some of the things that we don't necessarily want to do, and our ego is telling us not to do it, but the place in which we are here to express will call us to do that challenging thing, or to come into that piece of courage, or to express ourselves in a way that might feel really challenging, but it comes from this divine expression of who we are, as opposed to the ego telling us that we should, or obliged to, or have been told by somebody else that we need to in order to be successful. Katie says, great point. I have created my dream life by just being me. Yes, and this is what we want for everyone. We get to move into this place. This, to me, is what the new earth is going to be at some point in time. Like I said on day one, we're going through this really big period over the next few years of really kind of uprooting how things have been so that we can kind of move into that new place and where we are kind of going as a collective. And right now, for those of us in the new earth woman frequency, we get to hold the timeline of the highest version of where the collective gets to go. Now, for me, this is being in the true purpose and the true nature of who it is that we are. We are here to remember that we are God experiencing itself, source experiencing itself through this body, through this expression, through this particular uniqueness of who it is that we are. Now, Andrea said soul expansion, ego limitation thinking. Can you please expand on that? I'm not really sure what you mean. Samantha says desire equals divine abundance, whereas do equals poverty consciousness. Exactly. When we take action from a place of desire, then that falls into that beautiful divine abundance. And it is still doing as far as taking action goes, but it's not coming from this kind of must or should frequency that is not serving us at all. So one thing that came through really strong in the understanding of this process was, okay, so if I get to just be me, like I could just like have the most fun ever, like lying on the couch watching movies. And it's really important to just be really mindful of the pieces that are actually not calling us forward, because just being yourself means the highest version of yourself, not the self that has all the layers of being afraid to do the things that are challenging. And the highest version is the one that is willing to call forward the courage in order to step forward. It is not an excuse, and we don't want to see it as an excuse in order to not fully show up and not fully express ourselves. We want it to be the excuse to overcome the scary things. Again, being pulled by our soul's calling instead of pushed by our ego. Soul equals expansion, ego equals limited thinking. Yes, totally. Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. Yes. So let me just see where I'm up to. Yes, and so when we are really anchoring in this idea of that our purpose is to be me, it's really important to recognize all of the pieces that are not me, all of the pieces that we've picked up along the way that we get to kind of clear away so that we can be more of who we are. Now, this can be in a multitude of different, spaces of our lives, whether it be the way that we interact with our family, the way, I can get a little bit burpy when I am like kind of channeling and expressing, and so excuse me for having to keep, I might just have a drink of water actually. Let's just do that. And so recognizing all of the parts that are not me, that are like kind of constantly playing out to block you or hold you back from being the full expression of yourself. Kerry says, myself is God/spirit masquerading as Kerry this lifetime. Exactly, Kerry, I love that. Yes, that's exactly right. Each and every individual, unique person is God expressing itself through us. And we were created as the perfect example to have this particular experience. And again, I'm going deeper into that tomorrow, I think. So the biggest contribution that we can give to the world is to be fully expressed in ourselves, is to show up as the full version of us. Again, not the version that is stopping us from being that full expression, not the version that has all of those layers. Now, don't get me wrong, those layers are not wrong. It's about recognizing them and seeing them so that we can continue to be pulled forward by our soul instead of being kind of held back and stopped and blocked from showing up and being the full expression of ourselves. And when it comes to those kind of uncoverings of those pieces, for those of you who feel like in order to be completely fully expressed in order to step into that version of yourself, you feel like there's a little bit of unpacking to do, this is what we go absolutely deep into in the Wise Warrior Woman, the unbecoming of the version of us that is kind of stagnant and bored in the expression of who we are. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a phase, it's a period of time in which once we get bored, once we get to that frequency, once we're kind of a bit sort of stuck and not really feeling pulled by our soul, and we get to kind of move into this space where we get to crack everything open and really start to shine and brighten and be the full expression and be completely and totally in our purpose. So that is pretty much all that I have to share with you today. So I would love, for those of you who are on live and for everybody who's watching the replay, I would love to hear what your biggest takeaway was, what it was that really resonated the deepest with you. What pieces have landed, and what is it that now, with this new level of thinking, with this new awakened understanding, how are you going to move forward? What are you going to do differently? In what ways are you going to check in with that light and with that desire and with that pull of the soul? In what ways are you going to start to recognize the nuances of the push and the pull? I would love to hear from you in the chat box. And I'll stay on. I know there's a lag, and so there's about 20 seconds delay. Yes, so Samantha said being pushed or pulled. Yes, this can be really subtle. Sometimes we think we're getting pulled by our soul. However, it's actually our ego pushing us. Sometimes we are getting kind of pushed to do something and it feels like it's in alignment, but there's all this kind of icky stuff that kind of comes on the side and it sort of doesn't feel as good as what you thought it did. And then you start to recognize, oh, I think I was actually being pushed by my ego in that one, and I wasn't quite as aware or conscious or present with what it was that I was doing. Carrie says soul versus ego. Yes, the push and the pull. Amazing. So like I said, tomorrow is my birthday. I am turning 35, and from what I hear from the women that are older than me, it's the best year that I can possibly have. And so I'm very excited to get to party with you all tomorrow. We're in total lockdown here in Melbourne, and so I don't get to go out. I don't get to have like beautiful breakfast out in a beautiful cafe. I will be at home, and although I have some beautiful things planned at home, it'll be so beautiful and so amazing to connect with you guys, and the content that's going to come through that is already coming through really powerfully for tomorrow is going to be really potent. And so there's a couple more comments here. Oh no, they're moving so quickly I can't see them. Hang on, let me just see if I can rearrange. Nope. Okay, I don't know how to see them, so actually bear with me for 1 second because I do want to address them on here. No, can't see them. I've lost them all. So I will come back to your comments in the chat box. I will reply to you and I will give you some love. Thank you so much for your interaction, so much for your engagement. Sending you all so much love, and I will see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Times. And I look forward to seeing you then. Mwah.